40-year-old Kelvin Taylor of Upper Fines Avenue was arrested and charged with 2 counts of making use of threatening language, emanating from a viral video where he threatened a woman and a juvenile. The offences occurred on November 28, 2022 and December 15, 2022, a police press release said. According to police, on December 16th, a video being circulated on social media was brought to the attention of Commissioner of Police Hilroy Brandy. In this video, a man is heard threatening a woman's life. He made the utterances to both the woman and the juvenile. The threats made were very unsettling, and the Commissioner immediately instructed officers to move swiftly on the matter, the release said. The High Command said it wants to make it clear once again that the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force has a zero-tolerance policy for all forms of domestic violence. There is also zero tolerance for threats made against the life of others. We condemn all such actions, and when related matters are brought to the attention of the organization, our officers will do whatever is possible within their powers under the law to bring the perpetrators of these crimes to justice, the release noted. Taylor was arrested on Friday, December 16th. I'm Andre Huey for SKN Newsline.
The CCM-led government is now fully constituted for the next 5 years, following the swearing-in ceremony on 18 December 2022, at which 5 ministers were assigned portfolios. Premier Mark Brantley will have responsibility for finance, tourism, public utilities, energy and foreign investment, as well as other departments. Assuming the role of Deputy Premier, Minister Eric Evelyn will take responsibility of administrative areas that include agriculture, lands, natural resources, fisheries, cooperatives, culture and housing. Spencer Brand is now Minister of Communications, Works, Water Services, Physical Planning and Environment, Posts, Labor and Disaster Management. In addition to the 3 elected ministers, 2 were appointed senators. Troy Liebert will assume responsibility for areas of education, information technology, youth and sports, while Janine Nisbet will head as minister the areas of gender affairs, health, social services and community affairs. In an address to the people of Nevis, Premier Brantley sought to encourage residents of the island to be active in the development processes.
We pledge as a new government with a fresh mandate to work with you hand in hand, engaging you every step of the way. We propose to consult and together to forge the best way forward. I am persuaded that all who call Nevis their home have greatness inside of them. Nevisian exceptionalism has always been evident. All who reside here on our pristine island have the potential and capacity to be the best at whatever they desire. They can become the best carpenter, teacher, nurse, doctor, farmer, lawyer, or premier if they so desire. If provided with assistance, guidance, and direction, they will find their niche and they will excel. In the term ahead, my government pledges to create a social and economic order that will enable the destitute and marginalized to climb the economic ladder out of poverty. Our objective here will be to help such ones to enjoy a better life and reap the fruits of the promise of our island and our nation.
CCM lost 1 seat in the Island Assembly, reducing the elected numbers from 4 to 3, while NRP increased its numbers from 1 to 2, inclusive of the newly elected leader, Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge. Glenn Buck reporting for SK Newsline.
When you're looking to sell, buy, rent, or manage a property, your answer has to be Diamond Real Estate and Management St. Kitts, Dreams. They provide oversight of real estate and physical property in St. Kitts and Nevis, perform regular maintenance, utility payments, and safety checks to ensure your property is well kept. Dreams manages and optimizes your rental listing, recruits tenants, and much more. Looking to sell that parcel of land or property, or dreaming of owning your own? Trust Dreams under the leadership and experience of its CEO, Velma Merchant. Many can attest to her professionalism and customer service. Diamond Real Estate Management St. Kitts. Call 663-7326 or visit their office at 15 Shadwell Industrial Estate, making your real estate dreams come true. The holiday season is approaching, and now is the time to get the message out about your business. SK Newsline introduces special advertising rates for the Christmas season with our Christmas specials. You can advertise on the SK Newsline Newscast or send special holiday greetings to the general public with our Christmas greetings on both SK Newsline and Voice of the Caribbean Radio at affordable prices. Call our marketing department for more information, 665-7496, or email advertising@sknnewsline.com. 'Tis the season to be jolly, so enjoy our Christmas specials at SK Newsline and Voice of the Caribbean Radio and promote your business the effective way this holiday season.
The SKN Newsline website now offers you more news. Log on to www.sknnewsline.com for local, regional, and international news. You can also watch the latest newscast and keep abreast with news in sports, all from sknnewsline.com. That's www.sknnewsline.com. News at your fingertips. Nestled between evergreen mountains and the Caribbean Sea on the island of St. Kitts is the Millhouse Guest House and Convention Center. With breathtaking views, a rugged, beautiful shoreline, and immaculate manicured gardens make this the perfect location for your holiday, event, or wedding. With a large convention center, apartments with balconies providing stunning views, and a secluded cottage for larger family groups or honeymooning couples looking for some privacy. We have something for everyone. Book your stay at www.millhouseskn.com or visit our Facebook page, the Millhouse Guest House and Convention Center, an oasis of tranquility.
Speaking in the National Assembly budget sitting on 19 December 2022, Government Minister Dr. Joel Clark had severe criticisms of the previous Team Unity administration as she pointed to what she considered failures and abuses. According to Minister Clark, the government had no formal development plan, broke government's own procurement rules, and lied to the people about the financial status of the country, and pointed an accusing finger at the parliamentary opposition, former members of the Team Unity administration.
What happened in the past 7 years? And finally, and unfortunately, PSs and directors failing their ethical and professional mandate to serve the people. Oh, what we met part 4. Madam Speaker, the rise of the CBI program and the death of policy. This administration, that administration, for the past 7 years, oversaw the transition of the government revenue, supported by about 10% when Dr. Douglas was Prime Minister, to nearly 60% of the government's budget. Now, for an accountant as a former Prime Minister, that's not just a nightmare, that is an economic crisis. How could you fool the good people of St. Kitts and Nevis for 7 years? Surplus, 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 right? Surplus. Surplus, surplus, surplus. And nothing to all go so. There has not been one new thing from the Ministry of Sustainable Development, Environment, Climate Action, and Constituency Empowerment, and I wonder if Foreign Affairs, but the Minister of Foreign Affairs will speak to it, in 7 years. This Ministry of Sustainable Development, which was mismanaged by the former Prime Minister, deals with economic development, economic planning, and public sector investment. And I do not have one new thing to present from the administration for the past 7 years. It's important that I explain why this presentation will speak to stewardship and leadership. This is a philosophy of leadership from the past administration. If we met 10 problems, and we did, the member opposite can't even tell you of 9 of the problems. The government was shrouded in secrecy. Leadership was a solo engagement with no consultation, not of the government and not of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, and surely not of the opposition, because anything we say was a problem. Civil servants were paid 5 to 7 years to stay home. How is that prudent fiscal management? How is that putting people first? And I know for the past 3 days, we've had a budget presentation of smiles and pleasantries, but I think the members opposite have an ethical and professional responsibility. They're culpable, because pleasantries and smiles will not absolve the members opposite from their failure to protect the government from corrupt leadership of the former administration. All members in the opposition are culpable. They are all guilty. They allowed a leader to lie about surpluses, to lie while he was running our government's budget into a deficit. That is tantamount to theft. Theft of the citizenry. Theft of our freedoms. We couldn't comment on anything in St. Kitts and Nevis. Theft of our rights to employment. Instead of empowering people, we kept them on welfare programs. Theft of our liberties in COVID-19. And theft of our ability to make a sustainable living. I pause here when I reflect on theft of our liberties and a government that would support young women being put in jail for 3 days because they held a piece of paper. I can't let it go. I cannot, a mother of 2 in prison, jail, whatever it is, on the bench, 3 days, because she felt it was important to say to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, the restrictions are excessive. And that government supported the former Prime Minister, a failed leader, for 7 years. I think some people owe the federal government some money for 7 years of 2 salaries. I think it's only fair that some people pay back the federal government. But anyways, what we didn't meet, Madam Speaker, right? I thank you for finally recognizing. But should I thank you when you allowed yourself to be fired? I think you should have resigned and walk over to the opposition side. Shouldn't you have resigned and walk over to the opposition side? What we didn't meet, Madam Speaker, we didn't meet a national development plan since 2017. Madam Speaker, I asked the PS, the current PS, to messenger down this book, and we all know this book. The Adaptation Strategy in Response to the New EU Sugar Regime, 2006 to 2013. And when the former Prime Minister and Minister of Sustainable Development took office, they extended this until 2017. And from 2017 to 2022, there has been no national development policy guiding the country. We just do whatever we feel like doing, governing on a whim. Dr. Denzil Douglas-led administration did this so the people of St. Kitts and Nevis could transition from sugar to tourism. They did nothing else. Nothing else. But I'll allow the Minister of Economic Development to speak to that failure. There was no new initiative for sustainability. No response mechanism for climate resilience despite the experience of Hurricane Maria. No master planning agenda for national land allocation. No data to drive policy implementation. You know how long we've been asking for the survey of living conditions? No stewardship of the country. And it's important as a leader that you recognize that you are a steward. You do not own St. Kitts and Nevis, and you certainly do not own the people. But that is the governance we had in that ministry. What will we implement? We are going to work on a system of equity to resources, data for decision making, and we will complete the survey of living conditions, the census, and the sectoral surveys. Greater involvement of civil society, private sector, and our environmental stewards, and innovation and digitization. What has the ministry done? I'm going to review the projects we've implemented in the last 3 months, 3 months versus 7 years, the projects to be implemented in the coming year, and projects for our medium to long.
According to Dr. Clark, there will be greater involvement of civil society as well as digitalization and the completion of the survey of living conditions. Glenn Bart reporting for SK Newsline.
The Nevis Reformation Party has signaled its intention to challenge the results of the December 12th Nevis Island Assembly elections. In a statement from the party leader, Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge, she said it has been brought to her attention that allegations of irregularities, voter fraud and illegal conduct occurred on election day.
The election on December 12, 2022 was hard fought. Most unfortunately, however, it has been brought to my attention that serious allegations of unconscionable irregularities, voter fraud, and illegal conduct occurred that has put our democracy at risk and has created profound mistrust of our electoral process. In light of these compelling revelations, our party is prepared to challenge the election results.
The NRP won 2 of the 5 seats in the Nevis Island Assembly, including Dr. Daniel Hodge, who was competing in these elections for the first time. Some of the seats in this election were decided by really close margins of victory. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline. When you're looking to sell, buy, rent, or manage a property, your answer has to be Diamond Real Estate and Management St. Kitts, Dreams. They provide oversight of real estate and physical property in St. Kitts and Nevis, perform regular maintenance, utility payments, and safety checks to ensure your property is well kept. Dreams manages and optimizes your rental listing, recruits tenants, and much more. Looking to sell that parcel of land or property, or dreaming of owning your own? Trust Dreams under the leadership and experience of its CEO, Velma Merchant. Many can attest to her professionalism and customer service. Diamond Real Estate Management St. Kitts. Call 663-7326 or visit their office at 15 Shadwell Industrial Estate, making your real estate dreams come true. The holiday season is approaching, and now is the time to get the message out about your business. SK Newsline introduces special advertising rates for the Christmas season with our Christmas specials. You can advertise on SK Newsline Newscast or send special holiday greetings to the general public with our Christmas greetings on both SK Newsline and Voice of the Caribbean Radio at affordable prices. Call our marketing department for more information, 665-7496, or email advertising@sknnewsline.com. 'Tis the season to be jolly, so enjoy our Christmas specials at SK Newsline and Voice of the Caribbean Radio and promote your business the effective way this holiday season.
Online radio has never been this great. It's Voice of the Caribbean Radio at voiceofthecaribbean.net. Tune into Voice of the Caribbean Radio for great Caribbean programs, news, entertainment, sports, and current affairs. Wake up each morning and be inspired with One Day at a Time with Kim Huey. Stay abreast with news across the Caribbean and internationally with the Caribbean News Hour, and be entertained with shows like Reggaeville, Caribbean Classics, and Jive Music Show. Visit our website, download our Android mobile app, or listen us on TuneIn Radio. There is so much more on Voice of the Caribbean Radio, reaching the Caribbean and beyond. Check website or app for program schedule.
Auto Plus Car Wash, located on the College Street Gut, Bastyr, St. Kitts. Bring your car to Auto Plus Car Wash to remove water stains, wiper marks. Get your doors, roof panel cleaned, seat floor mats, buffing, headlights, and engine wash. You get quality service at the best price at Auto Plus Car Wash. They really care for your car.
Call 765-5140 or visit them on College Street, Bastyr, St. Kitts. Auto Plus Car Wash, where the service is number one.
If you're looking for a place to host that special event, conference, meeting, social event, party, whatever the occasion, your best option is the Millhouse Convention Center, Palmetto Point, St. Kitts. Located on the picturesque Garvey's Estate, the Millhouse Guesthouse Convention Center has enough space for outdoor events overlooking the Caribbean Sea. If you're looking indoors, the center is equipped with amenities needed to make your event a success. And by combining both spaces, you're sure to have a memorable event, no matter the occasion. Call the offices at Millhouse Guesthouse and Convention Center to book your next event on simply the most beautiful place in St. Kitts. Call 668-1392. Millhouse Convention Center at Garvey's Estate, Palmetto Point, St. Kitts. Making your event memorable.
In 2020, DEC19 Limited went into liquidation after more than 4 decades of providing air transportation services in the Caribbean region. As a result, a number of St. Lucians who were employed with the airline lost their jobs and had not been adequately compensated. Since then, the employees, through their bargaining agent, the National Workers Union, had been agitating for severance and other termination benefit payments. During the November 22nd sitting of Parliament, Prime Minister Philippe Pierre announced that the government would facilitate the outstanding payments by the issuance of government bonds. On Friday, 47 former LIAT workers were presented with the bonds, which collectively totals 4.4 million EC dollars.
It was not an easy decision. However, because we understand the plight of these workers, government had no choice. So I commend the staff at the Labor Department who worked very hard in order to put that document together, in order to arrive at it. And I commend the Prime Minister and his team in finance to raise the necessary revenue. The Prime Minister will disclose the amount. I'm not stealing his thunder, so that at least people are aware of the sacrifice that the government is making at this time to ensure that we take care of our people.
Former country manager for LIAT, Josie Mesme, noted that the St. Lucian government had set precedents for other regional governments to follow. In August this year, the Leeward Islands Airlines Pilots Association expressed its disappointment at the failure of regional governments to raise the issue of severance payment at a meeting to discuss whether to revamp DEC19 Limited or create a new airline.
The St. Lucian workers will be the first set of LIAT employees, former LIAT employees, to receive their severance. We have 47 of us here today. Well, not all, but 47 LIAT employees. And it's not only 47 people that will be benefiting from that. Hundreds. We have families, we have relatives. So a lot of people are depending on this severance. I knew the NWU wrote to our former Prime Minister, and we didn't get any positive feedback from him. So again, thank you, Mr. Prime Minister.
The decision to settle the outstanding payments, says Prime Minister Philippe Pierre, is another demonstration of his administration's commitment to the betterment of the welfare of St. Lucian workers. He first announced a plan to meet the outstanding payments to the former LIAT employees during his maiden budget presentation in April.
I remember when I was leader of the opposition, I had a meeting with some employees of LIAT, and I made a point that if we'd won the government, we'd have honored our obligations. And I remember leaving there and hearing some people say, don't worry about these politicians. They're just fooling you because they want votes. And that is something that people always say about politicians, that they want votes and they're just fooling you. Some politicians do that, I must admit. But what we also do not understand, that politicians are men and women. They have their faults, they have their strengths, they have their weaknesses. Some of us seem to look for perfection in politicians, not understanding that politicians sometimes mirror the society that they live in. But when I made that statement, at the time, it was a brave statement to make, very brave, because I'd known what the other governments were doing. And when you go into government and I had a chat with my colleagues, they thought I was insane. They thought I was insane because they were saying to me, how can you pledge $4.4 million to pay for an airline that is broke?
The government will also be paying similar benefits to former employees of the foreign-owned garment manufacturing company Majestic Industries Limited that ceased operations in St. Lucia in 2004 without paying the legal entitlements to the workers. The approximate value of the compensation package for the former employees of Majestic Industries and Liat 1974 Limited exceed EC $6.3 million. For the DBS Newsworld, I am Zane Romulus.
Welcome back to Primetime News.
And a special welcome once again to our viewers on onespotmedia.com.
Up first this evening, the Bank of Jamaica, BOJ, is sending a strong signal to banks for them to increase their interest rates on deposits such as savings accounts. Now, data show that only 2 banks have increased rates by a small margin.
And so the BOJ is arming customers with the information, hoping that it will pressure the banks to act. Representatives gave details today at the Standing Finance Committee of Parliament. Andrea Chisholm has the details.
The BOJ has increased its policy interest rate from 0.50% in September last year to 7% in November 2022 to help slow inflation. That's an increase of 650 basis points. But most banks are not moving their rates. BOJ Governor Richard Biles said the average interest rate on savings, for example, increased by 49 basis points.
So we moved 650. They moved 49 basis points. This low pass-through reflected the fact that customers of banks who held demand and saving deposits over the period experienced practically no changes in the interest rates paid on these deposits.
And so the BOJ took the rare step of publishing the data, which should force consumers to pressure the banks. Only Scotiabank and First Caribbean International Bank offered to pay higher interest rates on savings. Scotiabank increased the interest rate on savings accounts from 0.26% to 0.27%. First Caribbean moved from 0.98% to 1%. NCB did not move their interest rate on savings account, sticking with 0.62%. Citibank also remained at 0.50%. Jamaica National, no change, sticking to 0.08%. JMMB also remained at 1.46%, which was still the highest among all 8 banks. First Global actually dropped its interest rates on savings account to 0.22%, and the Sagicor's rate fell to 0.31%.
The publication of this data is an initiative of the bank aimed at encouraging the public to act in an informed manner by moving their deposits to the commercial banks where they can benefit from higher deposit rates.
The governor admits, however, that customers may not want the hassle of switching to another bank. He says Jamaica's banking system is unequal as only 2 institutions hold 60% or more of all deposits on credit. Unless they make changes, there will be no huge impact.
We hope that will inspire depositors to, if not move their account, at least ask their bank, why is my savings rate so low? When we know you are getting from the Bank of Jamaica 7%. So every institution that has to leave money with us is getting the 7%. And they are giving their depositors at the base hundreds of thousands of depositors who constitute the bulk of their funding base, 0.5% or 1%. So at least maybe if they don't move their account, they'll ask a question of the bank. Why aren't you giving me a better rate?
Andrea Chisholm, TVJ News.
We begin with breaking news out of the UK, where the London High Court has ruled the government's plan to send asylum seekers to Rwanda is legal. The planned deportation policy was suspended in June after a last-minute challenge. For more on this, let's bring in Harry Fawcett, who joins us live from the Royal Courts of Justice in London. Hello there, Harry. This certainly was a major test of a controversial policy, and the High Court has ruled in the government's favour. What was said in the judgment?
That's right. Lord Justice Lewis and Mr. Justice Swift were considering a number of cases challenging this very controversial policy, and they have ruled that in principle the government's policy of immediately dispatching asylum seekers who've entered the United Kingdom to another country, to Rwanda, for processing and then potentially resettlement in that country if their asylum applications are deemed valid, that is a lawful thing to do, that it doesn't breach the Human Rights Act and that it doesn't breach refugee policy either. And so that is now the judgment globally on this policy. But in the case of the 8 individual asylum seekers who've had their cases brought as part of this entire process, in which there have also been challenges from a union and from a number of refugee charities, in those 8 individual cases, they've been sent back to the Home Office, the Interior Ministry in the UK, because the court has deemed that their cases were not properly considered on their individual merits and the individual circumstances of the people involved. So if this judgment stands, that will mean that in each of these cases the government will have to prove that, but that it can potentially as of early next year start putting people on planes for Rwanda in this policy, which would see more than $140 million spent by the UK in Rwanda, and would see people being processed in a detention centre, holding centre there, and then potentially resettled there rather than the UK. That is something that the government has prioritised, saying it will be a deterrent to asylum seekers and migrants coming to this country, especially via the small boats that we've seen coming across the English Channel from France. It's something the Labour Party, the main opposition, has called immoral and has been challenged in the courts today.
Harry, what's next? Are there any other legal avenues?
There absolutely are. We are expecting whichever side had lost today would appeal, and I think that remains the case. We're waiting to hear in person from some of the charities involved in these challenges, but that was very much the expectation. Also seeing reports that there will be a hearing to determine the possibility of sending this on to the Court of Appeal within the UK in January. And then even if the road runs out in terms of appeals within the UK, there's also the possibility that it could go to the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg as well. And that's where this becomes even more potentially controversial, because the European Court of Human Rights has the power to rule government policy unlawful. And so even if there were the kind of legislation that Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, was talking about last week, new legislation to make it clear that no asylum seeker coming through what is determined not to be a legal and safe route into the UK will be allowed to settle here, that could be overturned by the European Court of Human Rights as things stand. So and the Prime Minister has said all options are on the table, although he's been a bit more reluctant than some of his MPs to do this. Will that mean that the UK might consider pulling out of the convention, out of the court altogether, which would have all sorts of other ramifications potentially in Northern Ireland in terms of the Good Friday Agreement as well? So a lot still to go on this very controversial issue, but a major decision made here in favour of the government at the High Court today.
Indeed, many moving parts to the story. Thanks for breaking it all down for us. Harry Fawcett in London.
Gracias, General.
In a lengthy press conference in Lima on Saturday, Dina Boluarte defended her 10-day-old presidency.
There's a group that says Dina should resign. What does my resignation solve? Does it solve the problem? It doesn't. We will be here, firmly, until Congress decides to bring forward the elections.
She's in a precarious position, leader of Peru only after ex-president Pedro Castillo was impeached and detained. She was his vice president, and many now want her out and elections. She's tried to oblige, proposing a date, December 2023, but the country's heavily unpopular Congress has voted against moving the vote forward. It's currently scheduled for 2026. Meanwhile, there have been more than 20 deaths as protests have spread. Boluarte's government has declared a state of emergency. The army's been brought onto the streets, and it was noticeable that the first person to speak after her in the press conference was a general.
Bad individuals are moving from violent actions to terrorist actions, which are punishable at the highest levels of national law.
But critics say that the government's made a concerted effort to criminalise protests. And on Saturday, even as Boluarte spoke of peace and Peruvians coming together, anti-terrorist police were raiding the headquarters of an opposition party and a farmer organisation. More than 20 indigenous farmers were held, opposition party leaders told us.
Our colleagues are being interrogated, and they want to take them to the anti-terrorism center. It's really worrying, and evidence of how the government is trying to convince the population that peaceful protests are acts of terrorism.
An indignant crowd turned up to try and free them.
You can see that people have just come to try and protest against what's happening. There's still 20 people that are being held inside the building. You see the police lined here to try and stop them. It's images like this one that are sending alarm bells ringing about growing authoritarianism in the country.
The only way forward for a country in crisis seems to be elections. Now it's Congress's turn to decide if they're brought forward and if the country can move on with new leaders. John Holman, Al Jazeera, Lima.
Welcome back, everyone. Lionel Messi leaves international football as arguably one of the best ever to play the game as he led Argentina to a third World Cup title in Qatar. In a match for the H's, it was Argentine goalie Emi Martinez that helped complete the set.
The final pitted one of world football's most enduring and mercurial talents against one that has already put his name in the conversation of greats. Argentina went ahead in the 23rd minute. A foul on Angel Di Maria. Referee Simon Marquinhos had no doubt. Messi took responsibility and tucked it away easily. The Albiceleste were in dreamland 13 minutes later when Alex McAllister found Di Maria wide open and they led 2-0 at the half. But this was far from over. Kolo Muani won a penalty for France, Kylian Mbappe took it, and half the deficit in the 80th minute. In the 81st minute, another Argentina lapse allowed Mbappe to grab a brace. A well-controlled one-time finish, that 2-2 score held until the end of the 90th, and the teams headed into extra time. In the 108th, Messi was on spot to volley in his second to make it 3-2, becoming South America's most prolific tournament scorer with 26. R9 is second with 25. But 2 minutes before the end of the extra half hour, a handball gave France and Mbappe another lifeline. He put it away to become only the second player to score a World Cup final hat-trick after Geoff Hurst in 1966. So penalties will decide a game many hoped will never end. Messi and Mbappe scored their first kicks. Eventual Golden Glove winner Martinez, who guessed right for the first, stopped Kingsley Coman's second kick from 12 yards for the French. Paulo Dybala scored Argentina's second. Then Aurelian Tchouameni skewed his wide of the upright. Leonardo Paredes scored his for Argentina. Kolo Muani put his away for the defending champions. But Gonzalo Montiel scored his to give the Argentines their first title in 36 years. It was the perfect end to a World Cup that was the first of its kind and brought out the best from the minnows and living legends alike. 172 final goals is a new record, surpassing the mark set in 98 and equal in 2014. Messi, the first player to win 2 World Cup Golden Balls, now sits among the pantheon of footballing greats, having won every major title on offer in his time. The think pieces of this incredible run from Rosario to the top of the world will continue well after his wake has subsided.
Welcome to the SKN Newsline Weather Report. I am Janil Boone. Here is a look at the forecast for St. Kitts and Nevis. For a more detailed weather report, visit our website at www.sknnewsline.com.